Okay, so this first practice that we'll do is called belly breathing. It's also referred to as diaphragmatic breathing. So some of you are nodding your heads. You may be familiar with that. And this is a traditional stress management skill, but it also intersects with mindfulness in that when you're engaged with this skill, we're going to be focusing on breathing from the diaphragm, but every time you notice your mind has wandered, you'll just bring it back to the breath. So that's the intersection of mindfulness with this belly breathing. And so this particular strategy or skill can be especially useful when you're feeling anxious, when you want to, kind of calm that anxiety a bit. It's also really helpful if you're having trouble going to sleep, if you're just not able to calm your mind and your thoughts are just going on and on and on. This can be a very beneficial exercise to do at that time. You can also use this anytime you're feeling like you're in a stressful situation. So if you're, getting impatient in a line, or you're stuck in traffic and you're frustrated, or that train is going back and forth, and any of those types of situations, it's something that you can do and nobody is going to know that you're doing it. So it can be a very beneficial activity. Can be used in a lot of situations. So, as you know, breathing is voluntary and involuntary, right? So our body's going to do it for us if we don't, but we can bring our conscious attention to it and control it. And so it can reflect our mood, and it can also change our mood. One type of breathing, the one we're going to be doing today, is the belly breathing. And it's a type of breathing that engages our diaphragm. So the diaphragm is this muscle that separates our rib cage from our abdominal cavity. And by breathing with the diaphragm, you actually are getting the most efficient breath because it's enabling the most air to come into your lungs and your lungs to fully fill and to exhale. And so it's very beneficial. Another really great aspect of it is that it triggers what's called the parasympathetic nervous system. And so when there's two balancing systems. One is the sympathetic, which is triggered when we experience a stressor or something threatening, right? That fight or flight response, where our heart rate increases, our respiration increases, all of that so we can fight or flee whatever that threat is in the moment. Well, the parasympathetic nervous system kicks in and kind of calms our body down and brings us back to equilibrium. Slows down our heart rate, slows down our respiration rate, etc. So they're two opposing systems, and that's why this is also really beneficial in those stressful moments, because it can bring you down to, trigger that system. And so, to help find your diaphragm, I just want you to put your hands sort of on your hips, and let's maybe just sit up straight in our chairs. And just I'm going to demonstrate first, but just make a hissing sound, and that's going to engage your diaphragm, and you should feel it engage, and you should feel your belly kind of bulge out a little bit when you do this. So, all right, so we just have to do it a couple times, but hopefully you can feel that diaphragm engage, and if not, it's okay. Just like I said, it takes practice. But so we'll be working with this, but that's just so you kind of know, okay, where is the diaphragm? What does it feel like when the diaphragm is engaged? And you should feel it kind of bulging out right under your rib cage. That's where the diaphragm is. So let's put our hands down, and we'll just get in a comfortable position in our chairs, and just relax. Feet on the floor, your hands either on the armrests or in your laps. And if you're comfortable with it, just close your eyes. Otherwise, just a soft gaze on the floor in front of you. And place one hand on your chest and the other hand on your belly. And just breathe normally. So just natural breathing. Don't force it or try and control it. Just natural breathing. And what I want you to do is just notice whether your chest is rising more or your belly is rising more as you breathe naturally. And there's no right or wrong. It's just noticing, are you one who breathes more with your chest or with your diaphragm? And if your belly's not expanding when you're inhaling, go ahead and try and engage the diaphragm and push your belly out a little bit when you're doing that. So do that consciously. And just as best you can, try and engage the diaphragm as you breathe. As I mentioned, everything takes practice, so just be compassionate with yourself as we're learning this. And so you can put your hands down, and I'm going to ring the bell, and then we'll start, for a few minutes. I just wanted to get you kind of recognizing that shift from chest breathing to diaphragm breathing and when it's engaged. So again, stay in your comfortable position. And just keep practicing this belly or diaphragmatic breathing for a few minutes. Pushing the belly out. Noticing when your mind wanders, and just bringing it back to the breath. Some people find it helpful if your mind is wandering a lot. You can, as you inhale and exhale, you can say silently to yourself, in on the inhale, and out on the exhale, just saying that silently to yourself, or counting up to 3 and back down on the inhale and exhale. Those can be additional focal points for you while you're doing this breathing exercise. And where is your mind now? If it's wandered, just gently bring your focus back to your breath. Try to deepen and slow down your breathing a little bit more by counting silently to 4 or 5 on the inhalation and exhalation. And just continue that for a few minutes. Engaging the diaphragm on the in-breath. And relaxing the diaphragm on the out-breath. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes and come back to the group. We have maybe just a few minutes if anyone has any observations or reflections they'd like to share based on that experience.
2 breaths was the longest I went where I could focus.
Okay.
Every time you mentioned bringing it back, I thought, oh yeah, that's what I'm supposed to be focusing on right now. How long have I not been focused on that? Yeah. And then I started counting, and then I lost count after 2. It was like wandering again.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. There's things that just like memories and stuff that just come into your mind, and it's like you have to keep bringing yourself back constantly, which I didn't anticipate. So.
I became really aware of the clock back there. Just ticking.
Yes.
I did finish, like, I feel like a sense of like stillness. It was just like,
Still when you finished. Well, the guided meditations, when you're starting out, and even not starting out, if you're a more experienced meditator, can be really helpful for the reasons you all were mentioning about sort of not even realizing your mind was elsewhere. Because I don't know how long my mind would be wandering if that voice didn't come in and remind me to, that if the guided narration didn't come in and remind me to come back. So eventually, though, you would recognize it and you would bring it back. And that's strengthening your mindfulness muscle. And I think over time, you will notice it sooner. And so right now, it may feel a little foreign to you in that you think you might need to rely on somebody else to bring you back. But in the future, as you continue practicing, your mind will strengthen in that regard. Yeah, you also notice things that you might not normally notice. And feelings of calmness, right? That's what I was talking about. When you're engaging that parasympathetic nervous system, so it's slowing you down. Anything else anyone would like to share, or something different?
Actually, when I did it, it kind of made me feel a little anxious.
Oh, okay.
And the reason why is because I used to be a long-range marksman for the Army. So when I would do like breathing techniques, it's similar to what we're doing right now, to calm yourself, to slow your heart rate down. So my head would go to like, my body would go to a different kind of like state, like almost like, I'm like, wait a second, I'm meditating, I'm not like preparing to shoot a weapon. So that's definitely a little bit different.
Very much so, and that's conditioned, right? So
Right.
Because of your training, that's what your mind associates, this slowing down, this slowing of your heart rate and such
Right.
down. Yeah. So you can recondition. That will become extinguished over time, and when you start doing the mindfulness practice, and it's no longer associated with that particular experience of the marksmanship. So over time, you might notice and see what happens over time, and if that shifts your tendency to think about that other experience versus the meditation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is interesting. And we all are conditioned in that way. We all are conditioned. Our minds are conditioned to have certain habits, and that's part of what we notice in these mindfulness practices. Is what are our habits of mind? Where do our thoughts tend to go, or do we tend to always be thinking? I mean, most of us, I think, especially in school and in an academic setting, are always thinking about the next thing that you need to do. Some people will notice their thoughts always tend to kind of go to the past. So, and you'll start to, because you're paying attention, you'll start to learn the habits of your mind. And you probably already know some of this at some level, but you'll become more attuned to it. Okay.